partner. Welcome to the first installment of what we here on this channel are calling Tumblereads, where we read cowboy romances, where they take some tumbles in the hay. I can't take myself seriously, but hi, I'm Heather. Welcome to my channel. We are reading cowboy romances, and yes, this series is called Tumblereads. You can thank my best friend Brent for coming up with this series name. I am excited about Tumblereads because if y'all didn't know this about me, I spent a good portion of my life riding horses competitively. I started taking horseback riding lessons in the 8th grade and rode competitively all through high school. Before I started riding horses, I was definitely like the horse book girl. I have read probably every single Saddle Club book, every single Thoroughbred series book, and then like it took off from there because I rode competitive hunter jumper for quite a while. I had a horse, his name was Ben, and then after a very traumatic portion of my life where my fiance left me, this is real, this was my life, I decided that I was going to take a year off of college and I was going to move to Colorado and work at a ranch. So I have been there and I have done that. Now the ranch I worked at was technically a Christian camp, but we definitely like operated very much like a ranch with guest houses and that kind of thing. Half of our property was like cabins that campers stayed in. Half of our property was what we called the family lodge or the ranch, and families would come and would schedule activities with us. So as I was working at this ranch, we had a herd of 52 horses that the 9 of us wranglers, ranch hands, whatever you wanted to call us, helped maintain. We were assigned horses to make sure we're exercised, we're safe for families, we're taken care of. While working there, it was a very, very remote location in the city of Lake City, Colorado, which is in Hinsdale County. This is one of the smallest counties in the continental United States and the home of Alfred Packer, one of the first convicted cannibals in the United States. Fun fact. Some of my duties while working at the ranch were taking care of my assigned horses' hooves, which means I did learn how to do farrier skills. We maintained the irrigation ditches. Colorado is typically a very dry place where we don't have a lot of natural water sources for our horses, and so we maintained irrigation ditches in our pastures. We maintained the fence lines, so if a fence went down, we were the ones that fixed it. We replaced fence posts, we rewired fences. During elk season, if a hunter got an elk like on a mountain, they would radio our barn and we would pack out horses. So like I would ride a horse and then I would have a horse ready for a hunter who I would lead behind me, and then that horse behind him would be ready to pack out an elk on, and we would go up the mountain in the snow and the ice and we would get the hunter and the elk, and then we would come back down the mountain in the snow and the ice, which was very precarious. Family campers on breakfast trail rides. We operated camps for young kids who wanted to come to the camp and learn how to ride horses. It was just a really, really cool time, and it was definitely the hardest job I've ever had. So when we're looking at a cowboy romance, I have done all of these things except the romance portion of a cowboy romance. If it involves working on a farm, working on a ranch, I've done it. Because of the Christian nature of the ranch I worked at, there was not really any of this type of romance going on at the camp. There were plenty of people that fell in love, but let me just say I was not one of them. I want to see if I can find a book that gives me all of the nostalgia of working at a ranch, riding horses competitively, with a healthy dose of romance. So let me talk about the books I'm going to be reading in this vlog. First of all, we're going to be reading Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is book 1 of the Chestnut Spring series, and this follows a guy named Rhett Eaton, who is a professional bull rider who gets himself in some PR trouble, and so his PR agent sends his daughter to basically like babysit and get him on the straight and narrow as far as his public image goes, and they end up forming a relationship. And then we have Done and Dusted by lylasage. The cover is adorable. This is a competitive horseback rider who gets injured, I think, and comes back to her small town, and bad boy, brother's best friend, isn't supposed to be interested in her, but I think they hit it off when she comes back to town. So I'm here for all of the vibes. It's also Super Bowl weekend. I'm actually filming this, secret, after I've already finished the first book because I forgot to film an intro, but it is Super Bowl Sunday right now, and go Taylor's boyfriend. You'll probably hear me say that 15,000 times in this video, but with all that said, let's jump into the first book, which is Flawless by Elsie Silver. Good morning, friends.
I would say good morning, but it is past 12:30 in the afternoon. But I did just wake up. Y'all, I have not slept in and slept this great in years. So I am very excited about a good night of sleep. I'm also excited to be picking up Flawless by Elsie Silver today. To be frank, I have already started this book. I've been reading bits and pieces of it throughout the week, but y'all, teaching in the spring is a whole different rodeo, and I just don't have time to read a lot during the week, and that bums me out so hard. But we are here for the weekend to read this, and hopefully also done and dusted. I'm on page 97, chapter 9, and here's what I have to say about this book. I like it, but I'm not like in love with it like I thought I was going to be after a lot of people just like ranted and raved about this series. And a lot of it comes down to the dialogue. I just feel like the dialogue in this book is not how people speak. And I will try and find more specific examples as I read, but like it feels very contrived. It feels very like this is the quippy comebacks that would sound good, but not like a natural flow of conversation. Does that make sense? And of course, I'm also reading this as a former competitive horseback rider, a former ranch hand, and there have been a couple of scenes that have made me feel a little bit nostalgic. When we first get kind of like a bird's eye view of the farm ranch that Rhett, our main male character, lives at, has grown up with his family. He and his brother are outside digging posts, like holes for posts to build a fence line. And my first day of work at the ranch, that is what I did. Me and my coworkers got in the old barn truck and we drove down to where the fence line needed to be repaired. And that was my first experience with a post hole digger, which is this thing. It kind of looks like giant scissors, right? But then there's this thing at the bottom that's like an elongated shovel, and you get it to the size that you want it. You bear down on it, you beat down on it with your feet, and then you scoop up the dirt and it makes the size of the post. There was also this very random moment of Rhett waking up in his bedroom in the farmhouse and putting his feet on the cold floor. And I do not know why that scene triggered memories, but we woke up so early every day to go to work. And when you woke up in Colorado at a ranch, in a cabin, the first time you put your feet down on the floor, it was like a shock. We were lucky in that our floors got heated in the winter, but still, like, it was a shock to the system. There hasn't been a whole lot of bull riding or like horses or any of the stuff that I'm familiar with in my line of work when this is what I did, but I'm enjoying it. Summer, I feel like I don't really know her character yet. She is our main female character. She is definitely like a buttoned up city girl, and he is like a rough and tumble like rodeo guy. So obviously they're quite different. They don't exactly like each other when they first start working together, but it is the very typical romance setup of like outwardly, like conversationally, they are not enjoying each other's presence. But then when you're in each of their POVs, they're like, I just couldn't help looking at that tight little skirt, or I just wanted to run my hands on his muscled back. And, you know, you can tell that they really like each other and they're very physically attracted to each other. But that's the setup so far. So I'm gonna keep reading. There's actually sprints with Liv out on her Patreon with some of my book friends in a little bit. And so I'll be watching that and reading. Today is gonna be mostly a cozy day in bed. I do have a little bit of a headache, so I'm trying to not push myself today. Tomorrow we'll go out and do some fun little Valentine's Day things maybe. And I have Monday off. So if I don't finish my books this weekend, I can finish the readathon on Monday. But let's keep reading. Maybe I'll start to enjoy this more. It's definitely feeling like a 3.5 star book right now, but things could change. I have a lot of book left to read. There's a scene in here where the two of them are at the gym, and Summer is doing hip thrusts and Rhett is just being gross, and I don't like it. Hi friends, I'm looking like a wet rat, but I just did my skincare, washed my hair, feeling like a new person, and Book update, because I have made it to 50% of Flawless. It's like 9 o'clock, but the day still feels very early because I slept until noon. So we're still up, we're still reading. And like I said, I took Monday off, so I'm not even about to enter the Sunday Scaries version of the weekend. So we're in our 90s Nickelodeon shirt, like what could be better? But I owe you my thoughts and feelings on Flawless so far. I was complaining a little bit at the beginning about how some of the dialogue felt a little, I guess, unrealistic is the best word for it. Like, when this guy is talking to his siblings, he will say things like, "You checking out my girl, little brother?" Who walks around, like, maybe it's just the way I grew up. I have never heard somebody refer to their younger siblings in conversation consistently as comma little brother, comma little brother. But it has gotten better, especially between Rhett and Summer. Their conversations, their dialogue is sounding a lot more natural, which is great. 50% of the book in, and there have been no actual spicy scenes. However, their inner monologues, and we're in their POV, the tension is building, my friends. These two want each other so desperately that it just needs to happen, because I'm tired of hearing about it, to be frank. So we have been to a couple different bull riding competitions that Rhett has gone to. His big conflict, just like personally in this book, is that he is getting older. He is one of the older men for the sport, and like his body is taking a beating every time he gets back on a bull. So he is like early midlife crisis of like, what do I want to do with my life if I'm not a bull rider? Summer's big crisis is that she was in a very toxic relationship, and she does not quite want to acknowledge the toxicity of it before being put in this like PR babysitter position, and therefore consequently falling for her client Rhett. And I don't think she quite knows how to accept that she was in a toxic relationship, and like not just toxic, like beyond toxic, especially for her age. And she's also had like some chronic health issues, which I do appreciate being brought up as somebody with chronic health issues. So that is kind of relatable and fun to read about with her. Fun, probably not the best word to say fun. She also has quite a toxic family life, something that I also can relate with and empathize with, and I'm enjoying that discussion. It's still feeling kind of like a 3 to me at the moment, but I've heard that other books in the series, like if I like this one decently, then I will love other ones in the series, so I'm gonna keep going with it. I will say for it being marketed as a cowboy romance, I don't get as many like cowboy vibes as I was hoping for with this book, because the focus is definitely on him being like this kind of rodeo celebrity. But the only real rodeo moments we get are when he's at the competition, and there's been like one scene of him riding horses with his brother, and then there was one scene where Summer had to go like find him, and they rode back on the horse together, which I guess that's the one horse trope people love in fantasy books. The other thing I'm going to say is this book makes me so sad for bulls. I'm going to try and finish it tonight, as in like before I go to sleep. That could be 1, 2 in the morning at this point, who knows. I've got my Kindle reader set up back here. I've got a cat, and I'm about to go get an ice cold Diet Coke from the fridge. So this is what I'm talking about. Where's my finger? I can't even find it. If you're asking for my pity, brother, you have it. Like, people don't talk like that. Hey friends, it is now like 2:30 in the afternoon on Sunday, and I did finish Flawless this morning, and I wanted to get on here and talk about it. So going into this book, I really thought it was going to be more cowboy centric, and maybe it was for some people, but like I wanted more of like time on the ranch and like doing ranch chores and like things that I'm familiar with as spending time as a cowgirl. I don't know why, like literally like my job was being a cowgirl, other than like we didn't have cows. I just felt like there wasn't a lot of like the ranch focus, and looking back at the book, like it is definitely more about him being a bull rider, but even that, like we didn't have that many scenes of bull riding. So I just felt like that like whole like cowboy rodeo aspect was lacking. It was definitely just more about Rhett
and Summer and their tension. And man, did they have some tension. So they did not get together, like for real, until after the 50% mark. And after the 50% mark, things got very spicy. It does not bother me to have spice in a book. It does not bother me at all whatsoever. But it would be like 3 chapters at a time of a very prolonged spicy scene. And I will say some of the language used in the spicy scenes made me cringe so hard. Like, I do not want a man to ever talk to me in some of the ways that he spoke to her. There were also some good moments of the spicy scenes. Like, if you're gonna read a book with spicy scenes and you're gonna read through the spice, you better hope that there's some good stuff in there too. And there was. Up next for me is Done and Dusted by lylasage. I also have this one on Kindle, which is exciting. And this one is pretty short. Flawless was about 400 pages and this one is less than 300. So hopefully I can read it very quickly. It is also Super Bowl Sunday, so we got our football shirt on. Go Chiefs, go Taylor's boyfriend. That's all I have to say about that. My friend is coming over in a little bit and I have got some pulled pork in the slow cooker right now. He's bringing over some yummy treats. So I don't know how much reading is actually going to happen because of the Super Bowl, but we're gonna go ahead and get a head start because I'm really hopeful that this one has like the actual cowboy vibes that I'm looking for, because this one is about a girl who rides horses competitively, which feels familiar. Happy day after the Super Bowl. I'm so glad I took today off. Like, I can't even tell you because I was tired this morning. And not only that, guys, I don't know what I did. I promise you I have not been fixing any dryers lately, but my back is shot. Like, most of the time I don't feel like I'm getting older, but then every now and then my back is like, nope, you're not allowed to stand up straight. You're not allowed to get out of the bed without feeling like you're gonna fall over. And that's the current state of the world. My lower back is in so much pain. So I am staying right here for a little while. I did get ready because I looked like I played in the Super Bowl last night when I woke up. We finished Flawless yesterday. I told you all about that. And I had grand ambitions of getting quite far and Done and Dusted yesterday. Didn't happen. Best friend came over. We watched an episode of Wheel of Time. Still don't know about all the choices they're making in that show, but nobody asked me my opinion. So I only read 2 chapters in Done and Dusted. We watched Wheel of Time. We stopped for the halftime show. Usher, amazing as always. I love Usher, y'all. I love him. My favorite song in the world is Yeah, and I'm not saying that sarcastically. At one point I learned how to play it on the ukulele and I sent that to my best friend for his birthday present. That video is now lost, which is the saddest story in the world, and I will be remaking it one day when I get a new ukulele. We watched the second half of the game. Go Chiefs. I am upset with Travis Kelce about that like aggressive act towards the coach. Did not love that. Taylor needs to have like a sit down talk with him because that was not what we expect. That was not what we expect. But go Chiefs. Really tired today. I did spend a little bit of time reading this morning, which is why I've got my Kindle set up behind me, and I am now 80 pages into Done and Dusted. It is only a 300-ish page book, so I am about to read some more and maybe get it read today. I will say that as far as like the cowboy vibes, I am enjoying this book a lot more than I enjoyed Flawless. It's set on a ranch, like her family owns the ranch. She is a horseback rider. There are horseback riding lessons going on the ranch, and it just feels more cowboy. I don't know how else to explain it. I also, y'all, I want to go line dancing. Who am I? Never been like for real line dancing in my life. On top of all of that, if you missed it, Beyonce kind of like dropped in a commercial that she was releasing new music today, and it's good. And it hit right when I'm in my cowboy romance era because they are very country inspired songs. I really like Texas Hold'em. I like 16 Carriages too, but Texas Hold'em is good. Somebody on TikTok's gonna have a dance out soon and I'm gonna learn it. Let's read a little bit more and then I have Moana rehearsal tonight. Hopefully my back feels better. The only pain medicine I have in my house is Excedrin for headaches.
but that's not gonna stop me from taking it because I'm hurting. Okay, I'll catch up with y'all when I get to like 50% through the book. Quick little update. Sorry if y'all can hear the fan. I have to have a fan on if I'm in my room. But so far, I really am liking this book. And I told y'all I was liking it more than Flawless. So the whole setup is that our main character, Emmy, has moved back to her family ranch from Denver. She was a professional barrel racer, but she was involved in a really bad traumatic accident on a horse that was not her own horse. Hasn't really been able to confide in anybody, but she hasn't been able to get back on a horse since it happened. And she basically just like quits Denver cold turkey and moves back to her ranch in Wyoming. There is this boy that her brothers grew up being friends with whose name is Luke Brooks. And he was kind of like a town bad boy. He was a little bit misunderstood, but was definitely like considered a bad boy. Hooked up with a bunch of girls. Nobody really thought that he had much hope for his future, but he now owns the like town bar. They kind of have like this whole like, I wouldn't even call them enemies, but like, you know how you are with like your brother's friends. You're like quippy, fake angry towards them sometimes, but like you care about them as a person. That's kind of their setup. And Emmy has not been able to tell anybody why she has moved back. She's just moved back and everybody's happy to have her there because they never get to see her, blah, blah, blah. Luke Brooks is trying to figure out and get to the bottom of why she moved back. And there's this moment where Emmy is going to the barn to spend some time with her horse and maybe try and ride again. And she has a panic attack. And she's been very like clear with this guy that like they're not exactly friends. They don't hate each other, but they're not exactly friends. But she has this panic attack and more or less asks him to hold her during the panic attack. And I just could not get on board with that. And maybe it's just a me thing because like it takes a lot for me to let another human being like touch me in any way. There are like 3 people in this world that I trust to give me a hug. And so this part was just a little bit hard for me to get on board with, but maybe I am just not like most people. Also, since you know this is Tumblereads and I'm trying to find a book that I identify with as a former cowgirl, I have also been injured in a horseback riding accident. Y'all are looking at my wrist right now at that scar. See it? It's so beautiful. When I worked at the ranch in Colorado, I was out taking one of our horses on the cross-country jumping course. His name was Bud. He was a big old Appaloosa. And we were at this jump on the cross-country course that then veered off into a fork. And so I was jumping him with the intention of going left. And as I was jumping, a deer darted out from the trees, or maybe it was an elk, I can't remember. Some horned creature darted out from the trees, and Bud got scared mid-jump, and so my body was set up to be going one way, and Bud got scared, and he went the other way, and I put my arm out to catch my fall. You're not supposed to do that, but in the moment, you know, you just don't really think, and my wrist just clean snapped into. And we lived out, I say lived, we lived and worked and were riding out in the middle of nowhere. There is no hospital in Lake City. You have to drive like an hour and a half to get to Gunnison, which has the nearest medical care beside the little like town doctor. So I had to get back on Bud after snapping my wrist. I had to rip the watch that I was wearing off, rip the ring that I was wearing off before my hand swelled so much that it cut off circulation. There was one other person with me and she was a woofer, which is a wilderness first responder. So she had some medical knowledge to help me out with those things. But I had to get back on my horse because we were 30 minutes away from the barn. And I just remember being in so much pain and like staring at my wrist as it just grew and grew and grew. I have very teeny tiny wrists. And that is to this day the only time I've ever broken a bone. Hi friends, happy Valentine's Day. I haven't vlogged in a couple of days because I haven't really been able to read in a couple of days. I had every intention of finishing this book on Sunday, and that did not happen because my back was in awful pain, and my day off was spent with my back in awful pain. And then yesterday I did go to work, but I was hurting most of the day, and then I had to go to rehearsal. But thankfully things are feeling a little bit better today. I'm actually at my apartment gym, and I'm trying to just get a little bit of walking in. When I got here, somebody was already on the treadmill, so I hopped on the little bike for a while, but now I'm gonna walk and read my book, and I am at 68%. I'm gonna set this down for a second while I chat with you about my thoughts. So overall, I'm liking the storyline of the book, but it's definitely not a 5-star. Some of the writing is starting to get on my nerves and feel a little bit choppy. I think it is the author's first book, and she's pretty young, so like it's forgivable, and it's not keeping me from finishing the story or wanting to read more of the books when they come out, but it's like choppy enough to be noticeable. I like it when we are in our main female character's perspective, Emmy, because she has a lot going on for her. She's moved back home. She's dealing with kind of like reintegrating herself back into her family and the family business and the town. And she just has like other things going on. She has a really close friend, and her friend is very wise. Emmy has ADHD and some sensory issues, which I appreciate. I am not diagnosed ADHD. But I definitely have sensory issues. So I'm grateful to read from a female main character that deals with some of the same things that I do. But I will say being in Brooke's point of view drives me crazy, because while this man is apparently close to 40, I think, maybe he's like 33, 34, I don't know. He just made a comment about 40 recently, but he's probably like 34, my age, right? And he owns a bar, and he works at this ranch, and he gives writing lessons, and yet the only thing he talks about is Emmy. And I'm like, do you have any other thoughts in your brain? Like, how are you an operating adult human being? There are times in this book where I forget that Emmy is 27 and Brooks is in his 30s, my age, because they just don't operate like adults. Like, I feel like I'm reading about 18, 19, 20-year-olds sometimes. And overall, I ignore those books because I feel like I'm too old to read them. So that is what's driving me a little bit crazy. I'm liking all the ranch cowboy things. I'm at 68%, 67%. So I'm going to hop on the treadmill and read, and really going to try and finish this book tonight, which I think is totally doable. And I will catch up with you after my walk. Hello, everybody. It has now been quite a few days. It's the weekend, and I realized I needed to get on here and wrap up my Cowboy reading week and give you just kind of like the final thoughts I had on both books. So as a recap, I read Flawless by Elsie Silver, and I read Done and Dusted by lylasage. And there were definitely pros and cons to both books. So with Flawless, I really liked the maturity of the characters. I felt like they both felt their age, which the more I read romance, the more I am realizing is a hot commodity. So I appreciated that about them. Honestly, the smut scenes were pretty good. That's all I'll say about that. It is a pretty spicy book, so if you are not wanting to read spice, I would not recommend this book for you. Although you can skip the sections that are a little bit more spicy, their inner monologue throughout the whole book is also quite spicy, so it's not something you're really going to be able to get away from. I will say, and I've said this through my review, that a lot of the dialogue just felt unnatural. And that is something that I really notice, and I really appreciate when it can be done well. And it was kind of up and down with the dialogue in this book. I did find that their relationship was quite believable, so that was good. And although I really was like searching for like cowboyness at the heart of this book, I felt like I didn't get that as much as I expected to, but the scenes where we were at the rodeo with the bull riding, those felt very believable. I ended up giving this one a 3.5 stars. So while it's not like the best book I ever read, I am intrigued enough to continue on in the series, and I'm kind of excited to pick up, I think Heartless is next. So switching over to the other book I read, which is Done and Dusted by lylasage. This, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this author's debut book. And at times I felt that. Looking her up on social media, she does seem to be a little bit young. And so I felt like it read that way in some parts. But while the other book was kind of lacking in the whole cowboy aspect, this book had that. It takes place on a ranch. There are riding lessons, there's arenas, there's barns, and we get to know the horses. And, you know, as my former life, it feels like it was a lifetime ago, but I lived that, and I was really looking for that in these books. I'm sorry if the camera is shaking. I have the tripod on my bed. I really like felt the cowboyness of that book. And something I noticed in this one was the main character has two older brothers that are very protective of her, but I felt like there wasn't anything done explicitly to help me like separate the two brothers in my brain. They kind of read like the same character to me. And I know that the next books that we're getting in the series focus on her brothers, so I hope that we are given something to help distinguish them in later books. I ended up only giving this book a 3-star, but again, it's one that I will continue to read because I think that her writing is only going to get better. So I wouldn't say that this video was a flop, but I also wouldn't say that it was like a roaring success. I would say that I am tentative on my feelings about cowboy romance at this stage. I'm still looking to find the one that like captures my heart and is a true 5-star. If you have a cowboy romance that you think is going to be right up my alley as a former cowgirl, please leave it in the description box below because I am very curious to what y'all think I might like. And if you've read either of these books, please let me know. Have you finished the series? Has anybody gotten to go ahead and read Swift and Saddled, which is the second in the Done and Dusted series? It comes out next month. Let me know that too, because like I said, even though this wasn't like a roaring success for me, I am interested. My curiosity is piqued, and there will be another video in this series. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and make sure that you are subscribed, and leave me a comment down below. If you don't know what comment to leave, why don't you just leave a horse emoji? It seems appropriate. I love you all so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.